This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason, what do you got on tap for us tonight?
Well, it's a series that I've been reading for a couple of years now that finally wrapped up with its fifth volume. I'm talking about Kieron Gillen and Dan Mora's Once and Future, a series whose first volume I picked as one of my favorite titles as of for 2020. Now, even though I haven't picked successive volumes as part of my best of list for successive years, don't think that doesn't mean that I haven't appreciated what they've been doing. It's like in the years since then. This has been a consistently witty and funny and clever series that maybe not hasn't transcended into all time great status, but it's been good fun that I've enjoyed reading from beginning and to end as well. Spoilers for what I ultimately think about how things wrapped up, but as far as how the series goes, well, this is a title about it's like a hapless British academic, named Duncan, who it's like he's just been living his life, just being a modernist teacher. It's like in his in his academic society, and also also having to deal with his mother, his grandmother, Bridget, who is just initially we're told that she's kind of typical overbearing, just type type grandmother, just making sure that her like her her grandson is just living his best life, and just doing whatever she says, and attending to her needs as she lives in an old folks home. Things though take a turn, however, once she here's a news report about how this academic how someone has been killed on this academic research assignment. It's like after they've recovered this mysterious scabbard. It's like on that was it's like that was recovered during this academic dig. Well, Bridget then realizes that this thing is far more important than initially thought. It's and so when she calls calls Duncan back from his date, from a disastrous date, because he's just spilled wine all over this one other fellow academic, Rose, her dress, he's just wondering, what, Graham, what are you talking about? What are we needing to do here? It's well, she's basically called him because she needs to have him uncover her stash of highly explosive weapons, because it turns out that Bridget, well, she's been part of like a long a long family line of people living in the British Isles, who have been whose goal has been to keep everyone unaware of all the feral stories like nipping at their heels. Basically, you know why you haven't seen any stuff like werewolves or vampires or angry fairies. It's in England. Well, Bridget and her family is the reason why. And if you're thinking well, hey, you're wondering why are if you're trying to keep stories from influencing why people think what people think about how the world functions, if people know how the world really is, when this event affect how things really are. This sounds like a distaff version of say it's of the Department of Truth. Well, you're not entirely wrong, but this is more of a it's hey, stories stories affect how you influence how you perceive reality. It's and and also just how you how you live your life as well. So the first volume is basically all about Bridget recruiting Duncan into the family business of of protecting the British people from knowing what's really going on in the world. Why does she need to do this? Well, it's because her daughter, Elaine, I'm sorry, Mary, who is known as Elaine, who is also eventually known as Nimue. Well, she's recruited her son into being a proper Galahad. It's because, well, sorry, getting ahead of myself. She is basically working with people to with certain people to resurrect an older version of King Arthur, basically a version of King Arthur who was just all about just keeping Anglo Saxons out of out of England. Basically, this is a version of Arthur who hated white people encroaching on his territory, but a certain version of white people as well. So basically, like, she is just trying to, like, get her, like, get in good with this, with this version of Arthur, and also just, like, getting, like, establishing her son, like, this version of Galahad, like, in order to, like, get the version of the Grail, in order to establish this version of Arthur as the real true king of the land. Now, it's all about now Bridget and Duncan, like, Duncan reluctantly doing this because, like, his grandmother is holding a gun to his head for much of the story. They're just trying to, like, stop Mary from doing this stuff, and that's kind of like the thrust of the first volume. And what made the first volume work for me so much was that we finally find out that, Bridget's, overbearing and arrogant nature, well, it's less a bug than actually a feature, because it turns out that, like, she, like, even though, like, she eventually got to a point where she like, had, where she and her family basically stopped, like, all this wild fictional madness from overtaking Britain. Well, like, her husband basically suddenly realized that, hey, like, that kind of puts us out of a job. But, what if we did this? And then she shot him in the nuts, and, it was like, and that was it for years. And now, like, she's having to deal with the consequences of shooting your husband in the nuts, and, like, what's going on for them, like, for them right now. So when she, so basically, like, this first volume is just all about, like Bridget initiating Duncan into the family business and stopping the other part of the family who wants to keep, like, keep things going for their own sake, and just, keeping, and just avoiding that business. Basically, like they're like, one part of the family wants to do this, wants to keep things going, like, out of selfishness. One part wants to, like, stop this out of familial duty. And that's what the first volume is. And then when you find out that, okay, well, Bridget, she's a bastard, but she's doing this for the greater good. And, it's like, and that's kind of like what got me on board with it. And also what got a lot of other people on board with this, because the first volume of this series was phenomenally successful. It was originally going to be a 6-issue miniseries, but the first issue went into 8 printings, which is something that does not happen a lot in these present days. So once publisher Boom Studios realized that like, there was an audience for this, well, they basically upgraded Once and Future from a miniseries to an ongoing series, which is how we get the events of Volume 2, where it's like, where Bridget and Duncan, it's like, are still, like, she's still initiating him into the family business of, killing nuisance like things in the like, in the British countryside, which it starts off with, like, Duncan basically saying, I killed the fairy, I'm never gonna look at a toadstool the same way again. It's like, and it's like, and but then things go bad when Mary's son Duncan basically undergoes a siege perilous treatment, and basically becomes a monster in service of this, like, of this original Arthur. And then Arthur and, like, his, Merlin, like, because Merlin showed up in the post-credit sequence of the first volume. Merlin shows up and basically realizes that, the best way we can deal with these, threats to this new Arthur, why don't we just unleash some other, threat, prominent English like, heroes and threats against him. Why don't we just like bring out Beowulf, it's like, and Grendel, it's like, and Grendel's mom, to deal with these characters, because this is a series all about just, how do you deal with yourself when you've become part of the story. It's like, because Bridget originally made Duncan to be like a Percival, like, out of the Grail myth. That's how he's able to, like, interfere with the Grail stuff in the first volume. But also, it's like, he was able, because he was also part of the story in the first volume, he was able to assume, like, be part of the story in the second volume. And and that's how he basically assumed the be Grendel, be Beowulf in the second volume, after defeating him through heavy arms, the application of heavy arms stuff. And it's like, and and even though it's all interesting about how seeing these characters assume parts of the story, it's also all about there's this family drama because while Bridget it's like is like has her own opinion about how her family was meant to like assume their role in defending Britain from these otherworldly threats. Well, it's her daughter. It's like, well, even though it's she had her own thoughts about how to continue the family business, she kind of screwed that up, and now it's because her son who's Galahad is now thoroughly enmeshed in the story and doesn't even recognize her. Well, she's got to figure out how do I get him back, how do I get my son back here, but also at the same time she's at odds with Bridget, and because Bridget is just hey, I'm more about just shooting stuff in the head in order to solve problems. Well, you got kind of a conflict of interest here, and that's kind of what drives the series through volume 3, which is when the Grail business gets gets real. And even though it's Galahad is able to achieve the Grail in that story, well, it's he kind of flubs it at the last minute. But good news is that their version of Boris, actually Boris Johnson, the actual Prime Minister of England, who basically takes on a real part of this story and realizes that, hey, you know what? It's this is the the conflict that I can use to find my reign as Prime Minister of England. Why don't I just because Boris actually finds out about what's really going on here, because there's actually a secret accord between Bridget's family and the ruling party of Britain in order to maintain things. Because while it was established years ago that the ruling party of Britain basically realized that, hey, there's all this crazy stuff out in the world that could destabilize life for everyone. We need to authorize some family or some group in order to make sure that things remain normal. Enter the Accord. Basically, Bridget's family has a certain amount of carte blanche in order to make sure that no one in England is able to learn about what's really going on in the world, all these feral stories that are threatening to undo their nature of reality, and the English government is obligated to help them out, basically, to a certain extent, because as we learn in volume 3, they've gotten a lot of British cops have gotten killed over the course of these first 2 volumes. So now they're the Accord's point man, James Hempleworth, this is come to come to Rose, who's basically basically become Duncan's girlfriend at this point, but also been enmeshed in this in this business as well. She's basically saying oh, so we've gotten so many cops killed, you're basically auditing us, right? And he goes, right, that's it. But what Hempleworth doesn't know in the course of volume 3 is that one of his guys is also working for Boris Johnson, specifically basically wondering what is going on here. What do I not know about this business, about this Accord business? And so once this guy actually reports back to Boris Johnson after having been dragged into the other world, during some business involving Lancelot, a dragon, and in the Grail Castle, he basically tells Johnson oh my God, this is what the world's really like. And Johnson is hell yeah, it's I can use this to tell everyone this is what the British public really has to be fear about. And that basically turns into while Johnson basically tells everyone this is what's really going on, there are actual dragons in Britain, and that basically allows ancient racist Arthur to basically make his full appearance on the world stage and drag Britain into the other world proper. That's where things end at volume 3. And volume 4, it's Monarchies in the UK, basically starts off with all of England dragged into the other world. Basically, this fantastic world, all of Britain England's history is true. It's like, so you've got like not just the Arthurian stuff, but also like Gorgons in Bath, like fairies around the countryside. Oh, and as we find out the end of Volume 4, hey, guess what? Robin Hood, totally true as well. It's like, and it's kind of crazy business, but it's good, but it's good stuff. And Gillen does a good job of just establishing the story's main conceit of like there are like life is a story, but there's also, and like these stories have rules. Like everyone's like, if you're wanting to like attach yourself to a story, then yeah, you've got the like you can like like get your life going in terms of like how that story goes, and that's both good and bad in the sense that you've got like that predictable edge about how things are going to go, but also it's like you're gonna have to like want to like like dealing with like the issues that the story involves, like when Rose in the course of Volume 3 basically adopts herself as Gawain in the story of the Green Knight. So while she's able to stop the Green Knight in the course of Volume 3, well, it's like he basically tells her, yeah, we'll play another game. It's like at the end, like in 1 year's time. So, and basically like he's basically just gonna like kill her. It's like at the end of 1 year. So how do you deal with that? Well, it's like, well, maybe if you've got a special magical scabbard, then maybe you do have a way like of dealing with that. Because even if like like the story like is destined to play out as it has like from time immemorial, like there are still ways you can like use it to your advantage in order to like subvert it. And that's what I like about this series, because even though it's like it's basically like shows itself to be like aware of like the convention of stories, it's got like a certain amount of cleverness in terms of how it deals with it, because that's how the series wraps up in Volume 5, the wasteland, because it starts in the thick of things, because not only have Bridget, Duncan, and Rose encountered Robin Hood and his anti-king business. It's like, well, they've also got to join up against join with the Merry Men and get access to their fast travel system. No joke. And how do they do that? Well, Bridget's got like a lot of C4, and she knows how to use it against Little John and his how am I gonna let me fight you? It's on this giant log. No point in guessing how that goes after I just said. But they've also got to find a way to because with all of England sucked into the other world, how do we get everyone out of it? Well, maybe if we had some way of accessing like the waters of forgetting with someone who can deliver them like all across the land, maybe if they could do that, they could bring everyone back. Which hey, we've got like a water god. Oh, and we've also got access to Hades as well, huh? So it's cool seeing how they work that out, but also how it's like how the business with with Mary, who is Elaine, who is Nimue, like dealing with like how she's like gotten her son Galahad mutated and so enmeshed in his story that he doesn't even recognize her as his mother anymore, and also like to the point where he basically like believes that Lancelot is his real father. And yeah, there is a Lancelot in this story, one who's memorably told like in Volume 2 that, hey, like Arthur, it's like, yeah, like your knight shagged your wife by Bridget. It's like it's good. It's good fun because Gillen is he's a very witty, funny writer, and even as dark and dramatic as things get, he is never about to let things get just like really morose or depressing. This isn't Die, in other words. This is much more closer to his and McKelvey's success in in the Wicked and Divine. It's like it's a lot of good fun, and I do think the story wraps up really really well. Basically, in a way that it's like like even if it becomes dangerously close to like saying, "Oh no, wait, it was actually all a dream." No, it's like it does that in a way that I generally like, and also I think that I think the series succeeds in the sense that like by the end of it, I also kind of was left wanting more as well because to Gillen and Mora's credit, and also I do want to say that Dan Mora does great work throughout the entirety of these 5 volumes. Just whenever Gillen like asks him to like to pick whatever mythological craziness, whether it's just like ancient racist undead Arthur, it's like or or like our Grendel come to life to kill like to kill his Beowulf. It's or the fairies who are just being like uppercutted with Duncan and his regular iron horseshoe. The key's just like there to just depict all the insanity that the story calls for. And this is great stuff. I mean, there was a lot of concern that once he became the regular artist on Detective Comics over the in towards the end of the series, that people were wondering, well, is he going to keep doing this series? Really, is he? But I have a feeling that probably contributed to the series just wrapping up, with the 30 issues rather than more. But I would have liked to have seen more. In fact, I really would have liked to have seen like Duncan just like going on some just business as usual monster hunting. Hey, we're told about him fighting against a 60s era druid Merlin like in Otherworld. We're talking about like stories about werewolves and all, and also just, what happens when they fight against a vampire. So I would have liked to know about that. Just what is the like the business as usual like when it comes for the for the McGuire family. That's what I like to have seen. And also, even though the series wraps up, pretty conclusively, I still kind of like want to know what's going to happen. It's like in the future when it's like maybe when Duncan and Rose's kids find out what they're heir to, even if Duncan and Rose aren't able to actually tell them for reasons that are like key to the end of the story. But yeah, it's like I really did enjoy this series, and even if it's something I'd say that it's like like greatest of all time or like best from like the writer and artist. It's something I did enjoy, and I'd like to see more of it at some point. Even if it's just like, hey, what is what is it like for them to kill just regular monsters, just business as usual stuff? Because I appreciate them, like Gillen and Mora, just like giving us like the business, like advancing the main story with every single volume. It's like, yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of filler, just seeing what these two will get up to, like in their daily business. And yeah, hey, maybe if they want to do a sequel at some point, like Gillen leaves the door open in his afterward, but he's a very busy writer right now, and Mora is a very busy artist who apparently appears to have ascended to the A-list, like at DC, and good for both of them. So yeah, it's like I do recommend this series, and hey, if they want us to come back to it at some point, even if it's just for like six issue like greatest hits tour, I wouldn't mind that. That'd be cool.
All right. Well, that's pretty interesting sounding set. Uh, Especially the part where Boris Johnson isn't.
Yeah, it's like he's not actually like shown in character; he's just shown in shadow. So, but like it's made patently obvious. Like this is Boris Johnson, and if you really, really hate Boris Johnson, you're gonna like seeing what happens to him in this series. In fact, you probably wish it happened to him longer.
There you go. See, there's all the reason why you should read this one. So, all right, cool. Do you know what you're going to be talking about next time?
Well, we're not actually done talking about Gillen because it turns out that his event series for Marvel on Judgment Day, all of it is now finally up on Marvel Unlimited. So yeah, I think I'll be talking about that next time.
Sounds good. And we'll talk to you all next time on Comic Picks by the Click.
All right, later, everyone.